I'm a couple of shows behind. And so I'm doing catch up, not just for that, but I'm kind of learning from previous shows a couple of shows ago. And so one of the things that I had noticed is, so first, Minion and I are separating our audio channels. We're recording locally. We're not just taking the stream and dumping it also to file. What we're doing is we're recording it locally, and we're using, in this case, a Discord chat. And now Discord can be any tool. It doesn't really matter. It can be swapped out. But we're using Audacity to do traditional local spooling of the audio, recording down to disk. And then I can pull them in. I can mix them together. Now that gives me the ability to make modifications, track-wide modifications to either my voice or his voice. And it lets me normalize them out in a certain way so that the volume is better. And there's all kinds of stuff that I'm learning to do and that I'm actually implementing in reality, even if it's a little bit off. And one case where it's a little bit off is, so last, how do I explain it? I had problems so I have problems hearing Minion several times. And now that we're separating our audio tracks, I will know when I am talking over him because I don't hear him properly. And so I have headphones on. And I have headphones on, and it's in a really odd arrangement. I had bumped into this feature before, but I wasn't sure what was going on because I couldn't reproduce it. And what it is, so I got a new phone and I got a new pair of Bluetooth earbuds. And what I had before was, at a while ago, I had some really expensive earbuds, and they can get crazy expensive. So I didn't have that kind of cost, but different life, and I had different headset it was really good. So these buds were really, really good, and they were actually, I was musing that the earbuds were more expensive than the phone I had. And I have a history with those earbuds of destroying the device that I'm putting them in. So I will have the thing in my pocket, like an MP3 player or what have you. And the headphone jack, if I got it in my pocket and say I sit down, you've got this problem where you have a hard connection before you get to a wire. And what ends up happening is that hard connection, the actual headphone jack itself at that point, that's not a joint. So you actually do damage, and you can lift off the contacts inside. And maybe I know now how I would open a device and repair that, but I didn't at the time and had a history of destroying devices that way. It was really, really annoying. And so I didn't want to do that with my phone. And so what I ended up doing is I purchased more than one. Bluetooth. What it is it's a Bluetooth receiver that has a headphone jack in it. And my case, I went through a couple, and what they are is it's like a clip-on little device, and you plug your headphone jack into it, and you can clip it onto like your collar or something like this. And what that does is that provides a Bluetooth connection out to your phone. So your phone can be wherever the heck, on a table, on the other side of the room, Bluetooth, right? And that saved my phone. So, and I know a bunch of Apple fans are going to be like, see, you're totally better off not having a headphone jack. And yeah, okay, it's true. It is true. The problem is, I know for a fact that I was losing audio quality taking my very expensive earbuds and piping them through this literally $10 Bluetooth receiver. Okay, now what does that have to do with audio quality for this show? Well, I still have these things. I keep my old gear around just in case the new stuff doesn't work out and I need to return it, or it breaks, or, that is how I keep spares for technology. So I've got it around, and at one point I was plugging it just to charge it, just because I was going out, or I just want to keep the battery in reasonable condition, and so I had it plugged in. and the audio on my computer stopped working. I ended up cluing in that it was because I had the thing plugged in. And it's never done that before. And what ended up happening is Windows, being a incredibly smart little thing, decided to switch its default audio output device to it, wired via USB, which is a feature that they didn't sell. I didn't even know existed. And I spent some time before the show to actually figure out what the heck was going on and to see if I could reproduce it, because I swear it was a thing. And I did manage to do it. And I'm not sure I need to like do a step-by-step to figure out how to reproduce it properly, because it seems inconsistent. Like, do I turn it on and then hold the power button, then plug it in? Do I plug it in? Like, it was connecting to my phone, so I had to make sure my phone would forget the device. And I don't know if that was related because I didn't do that before, and so on and so on. So I had a little adventure. So right now what I've got is all audio piping into my my headset, into my actual big headphones. I really don't like this, but I know it's the correct thing to do. I don't like this because my head is going to get really hot. And so this is actually really, really uncomfortable. But I'm going to be able to hear, I mean, in the future, if we've got any audio, any extra stuff that we want to talk about, if we're playing a video or something like that, I can hear it perfectly fine with no background noise problems. I can hear Minion just fine. And very importantly, the audio coming from my system won't do like a little bit of feedback out into my microphone. And it wasn't a problem before, but I did notice it. I was noticing it when I had the tracks separated. So I could actually hear Minion's voice just a little bit in my track because it was coming from desktop speakers. Now, you all probably would not have noticed that, and I wouldn't normally have noticed that, but because I was doing audio treatment, post-production, all of that stuff was being just normalized just a little bit up. So it was audible. It was nowhere near the volume of my voice. So that track was still perfectly usable. And I'm certain that when I do mix down those channels, even though I might have Minion's voice a tiny bit in my track, I don't think it would matter that when I'm merging the tracks. I'm going to find out. I'm probably going to end up, the amount of effort that has to go into the most subtle things. It's really quite shocking. At any rate. So this is related to this other thing. So that's Minion's voice getting picked up. But one thing that I noticed is that, so the entire point of all this audio treatment is to make sure that everything comes out nice and clear, the correct, consistent volume. Still kind of working on that, but it does make everything a little bit kind of closer to the listener. In particular, my breathing is getting picked up. And there was this old joke, I can't remember. The song is called Chocolate Rain, and the joke is when the guy is singing, he would turn his head to breathe in when singing. And it was a recording from the side, so it was really obvious when he was doing that. And so he did like a little, I don't know if he did an annotation in YouTube or if he just did an overlay in the post-production of the video, but saying that, I turn my head to breathe. Sorry?
It was done in post.
Oh. So he, everybody kind of made fun of him, but I totally understand why he does that. Because you can actually hear me. You can hear my labored inhales while I'm talking. And before, I didn't notice it. I would notice when I'm doing certain things, like the plosives, like I do every once in a while. And I will do that at the beginning of a new sentence. Very occasionally. I'm learning. I'm doing a little bit better. But now I'm hearing more and more of the wetness of my voice, which I'm going to complain about. And I'm hearing my breathing. And I can...
I'm going to go listen to that song.
We should play it during... We'll probably get a takedown. He actually got picked up, like, professionally. So,
really?
Yeah, he actually produced an album, I believe.
Oh, that's good for him.
He got noticed. I don't think it was popular or anything like that, but...
It was a meme. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we are going to be growing into a world that doesn't know the old memes. Like you still don't. You don't. Okay, I'm pre-internet meme, so we actually know the old stuff. And the very early internet meme, like if I talk about strong bad, then and that's very very early stuff. And yeah, it's anyhow. So there are advanced things that I can be considering at this point that are becoming more and more, I want to say necessary, more present, more pressing. And my breathing being picked up is one of them, because when I do the audio treatment, it brings everything a little bit more to life. And that breathing becomes much more noticeable. Now, maybe there's something I can do. Maybe I'll do a little bit more research. Maybe there's just a setting that I can tweak. Maybe what I need is to have like, okay, so I've got 30 seconds of silence with an open mic to listen to the room so that I can do noise removal. Maybe I need to have like 30 seconds of heavy breathing so that I can remove the breathing from the track. I don't, but it's between words, right? So, and there's no way that I actually did this for my proper narration because I didn't know any better. The things you regret. I used to go between every sentence and actually blank out the audio because I didn't know about normalization. I mean, like, I think I knew, or not normalization, noise removal. I think I knew about it, but I kind of forgot or didn't understand or anyhow. So I actually did manual edits. So you can imagine doing like narration for 15 minutes, and between every sentence or every pregnant pause or whatever, me going in and being like, I don't like that little line in Audacity is thick, so I'm gonna like blank it. And I did that manually like throughout it, so it would take me 3 times the length of the actual thing to actually edit it. Now I'm better now, not by a lot, but I'm better because I have track-wide tools. Anyhow, all this is supposed to be like saved for the Administrivia in the third segment.
I'll probably have like an hour or so in total.
An hour or so. Oh, that's right. So you've got a shorter. Okay, so Minion has to go, and so the stream shuts down when he shuts down since he's running that. So do you want to? So we could have a timer going, and I guess it doesn't really matter. So do you want to do this for another hour? Let's say.
Yeah. Or
yeah, give me.
Give or take.
Okay, so give me like just a general notice, maybe 15 minutes beforehand, and we'll find ourselves a nice comfortable break sometime. So yeah, that was me talking about my breathing and kind of complaining. And so I do want to talk about, so I don't like dogs. And I know that's going to upset a lot of people. I don't like dogs for all kinds of reasons. And I've talked about this at greater, more polite. I've explained why the position isn't actually as offensive as people would think. And one example is we've got a dog in the neighborhood, and it's a young dog. I don't know if it's a German Shepherd, but it's kind of like a medium-sized brownish dog, and it's young. I can tell it's young, and it's excited, and it's happy, and it's it's fairly intelligent and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know a whole lot about dogs, but I do know when a mammal is excited or scared and this kind of stuff. We map over a certain emotional, like we just know, like we know based on body language. Even if we don't have ears that do that, we can see when another animal does certain things with its ears or with its back, and even I have known about dogs for long enough that I can tell voice. I can tell when the voice does something. So this dog, it's young and it's excited, and I can tell that it's because it's excited when somebody is around because it's lonely. and it's really desperately lonely. It's really bad. So if anybody walks, past its gate, down the street, if anybody's in one of the backyards that's adjoining it, then the dog will kind of freak out and just constantly bark. And I certainly don't like the barking. I don't like the barking, but I also philosophically don't like the fact that dog is, its mind is like that. It's unsettled in that way. It upsets me that it's essentially being tortured, being put back there. Not just because of where it's positioned, because it being outside and alone isn't necessarily a bad thing. What is the bad thing is that it's being upset by that. A dog can be trained appropriately to be calm, to be chill, to be okay with its circumstances. Not as though, you're getting it used to being put in a torturous environment so it doesn't complain anymore. It personality wise, it calms down and it's okay with it. And I don't agree with that. That's one of my philosophical problems with dogs. But the owners I've never heard the owners, for example, raise their voice or physically go to their dog and actually, if your dog is jumping around at a fence and the owner is there as well, the owner would walk up to the dog, hand on the back of the collar, push its butt down so it's sitting, tell it to sit, this kind of stuff. Like, there are ways for an owner to interact real time with a dog when it's acting in certain ways. I've never heard or seen anything like that. So I decided to report it to the city. And that was 2 months ago. And just the other day, I reported again, just with an update. And I decided, as part of my ability to, now that I'm on bacon, I'm a pretty chill person. And so it doesn't really bother me. I'm doing stuff. I don't wear headphones when I'm doing things, but I do have audio going. And I've got reasonable audio. And I can't really hear the dog until I'm in a kitchen, I'm cooking, and I don't have a headset in or something like that. But it bothers me that the dog is bothered. And so it's not like I'm necessarily complaining because I don't like the owners. I don't like the owners, but it's because I want to help that dog. And so I started keeping a log of when this dog barks. So the rules for dogs are going to be different in different places. So I'll give you one example for rules. So you can actually go to your city and they'll explain what's going on. So they will talk about the licensing that's required for a dog, because you probably need a license, which is something that I don't know if these guys even have a license for their dog. And so one example is, if the dog barks during certain hours, it's definitely wrong. So for your locale, it might be if the same as party noise. So it might be like after 10 or something like that. It's the old people need to sleep. It's the bigotry against the people who have a night shift, basically. It's okay to make noise during the day. You'll wreck the sleep of those people. But for everybody else, it's like the world is made for right-handed people. It's a whole lot of that. So there might be a time of day thing for you, or it might be a certain length of time of barking or a certain aggressiveness of barking. So for example, you might say, if it's 5 minutes of barking straight, that can be noted. That is definitely wrong. And if it's intermittent over a period of time, like if it's intermittent barking, I don't know what that means. So if it's like one bark every minute over 15 minutes, then that's also a what? So what I do is as part of my how would you put it? So if something bothers you and you have the ability to calm yourself regarding that topic, in my case, I put a little tick mark, or I put a little like a time range. But I know I'm going to follow if it does become a problem, right? I do this so that I can actually know if it's a problem or not. because if I look at my notes and it's like, well, the dog barked for a couple of minutes, but that's it, just for that entire day. It was just for a couple of minutes. I can look at that day. At the end of the day, I can look back and go, okay, well, why am I? The dog's really not that big of a problem. I'm blowing it out of proportion. So I do that when I happen to hear it. Like, I don't listen for it, because that's absolutely gonna amplify. Like, if there are practices in religion and meditation where you have something that's repeated, and you have something that's repeated as a way of kind of embracing the philosophies associated with that structure of stuff. And so you might have a prayer, for example, and that might be a thing that's repeated at every meal. And when you do that, it kind of reinforces it. It's like we have the idea of reinforcing good habits. And the same is true with bad habits. A lot of people will dwell on problems and it's not helpful to do that kind of thing. Trauma is very much like that. And you can think, like, it's a really, like, it's a kind of sad, lesser, distant form of trauma to say that if you're constantly aggravated by the dog because you're constantly paying attention to the dog, then you're kind
Obsession?
You're what?
Obsession?
Obsession, yes. Well, yeah, there's a lot of that. Like, that may be, so there's, what would the equivalent be? So some people have that nosy neighbor, or that jerk neighbor who's it's got nothing better to do, so they constantly pay attention to you, or this kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily a creepy thing. It can be, but it's a fixation that happens. And so if I need to have a tool to remove me from being from the sinkhole of an obsession over being bothered by this dog, because it started off with me not caring. And I thought it was really weird. I'm sitting there, I'm hearing a barking dog. It used to drive me absolutely mental. And it didn't bother me. And it took me a while to figure out that it was the bacon. And I still maintain that I need, like, specialized bacon pills or something like that, so I don't have to, like, cook. I'm almost out of the bacon that I have, and then I'm going to have to try drying the other bacon that I have. It's frozen right now. And when I don't know. It's stuff to learn, but as far as I can tell, everybody says, well, if you're going to dry, you're still going to have to cook it, which, I mean, I'm trying to make it not a messy experience. Well, so I write it down, and I need to make sure that I'm not obsessing over listening for it, and I write it down because I can have a log. I'm going to start doing it so that it's at the end of every single month. I will look at my notes. Thankfully, they're more and more clear because I'm doing other stuff, or right, I'm away, or it's not for 5 minutes solid, this kind of stuff. But if I write it down when I hear it, I have a fairly scheduled lunchtime, for example. If it's set, like right now before the show, I had lunch earlier. And if I'm up in my kitchen having lunch, right? If I'm over there, if I wake up and I'm kind of groggy and I hear the dog barking, I'll note it. If I'm cooking, I'll note it. And I can look back and see if there's a schedule. And if you've got a schedule for the dog barking, you can hand that to an official who, again, I don't know your region, but they might actually send somebody over to listen at those times to see if it's actually a thing, to judge whether or not you are that nosy neighbor who complains, because maybe you are. And they also wait to have multiple people complaining. And if it's something obvious, this is actually, like, I know I've talked with Minion about it. I don't know if it was actually in a show or not. But there is a problem. There's a problem of psychology where humans will, if it's a problem, and it's a big problem, humans will assume that somebody else will take care of it. Somebody else is going to call 911. Of course somebody's going to call 911. Look, like there's somebody screaming for help. Of course. And nobody does, because everybody assumes that everybody else is doing it. And so it's the weirdest thing. Like, nobody has any evidence that somebody else is taking care of it. They just assume because it's really important. And don't do that. If you're being bothered by a dog or weeds in somebody's yard or whatever, so you can actually make anonymous complaints. So you don't make them anonymously. They are given to your city or wherever. You are tagged. You are responsible for your complaint. But they, at no point does that ever get back to the people you're complaining about. So if you're on great terms with your neighbor, but your neighbor just has certain bad habits, and those habits are against bylaw or outright illegal, you can report them, and the law can follow up, can take it from there. And of course, if you're a social type, if you're not shy about it, you can bring it up. You can bring it up gently and deal with it that way. Of course, that should be the first thing that you do. But it's very hard. But if it's something like a dog, and everybody in 3 blocks can hear that dog, and you hear that dog, don't make the assumption that, well, everybody else hears it. Everybody else, of course, somebody's going to complain. Like, of course, it's this big obvious thing. There's so many people can hear it. Well, no. I mean, maybe other people are going to be bothered that are X number of houses away, that are a block away, 2 blocks away, and they're really bothered by it, but they can't quite get the scheduling down, so they can't like physically walk over and find the address. But you can. You're in a good position. You walk past, and it's always that one couple of little dogs that constantly bark at everybody who walks past them on the sidewalk. Maybe you are the one person that can actually make the call, and help that dog in that case. And I'm pretty sure I've got a couple other people in the neighborhood that are, I know one set they're the nosy type, and there's a couple other people, they just want a nicer neighborhood, and they've got every right to have that. And I am essentially joining in that chorus. They are all anonymous. I can't know if there is somebody else complaining, but I do know if I am among the people that will help. Maybe I'm the first one, and I start that record, that history, and then the next person that comes in is the straw that broke the camel's back, and that will get the city to act. But if I get there and I do that right away, and I care, then it's an improvement for my neighborhood. At any rate, I guess I want to talk about water quick. So I've talked about water several times from several different angles, and I don't like my tap water in my city. And so there are going to be different circumstances. Maybe you have a bad taste. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you've got boil warnings. Maybe you've got well water. Maybe. And so your circumstance is going to be very different. But I just hate the tap water. It's awful. And so I started getting bottled water. But we started having a history of the bottled water going bad. And we returned it again, like for a 3rd time or something. And the people said, well, look, okay, one of the things that might happen is if you've got your water cooler next to a window, you've got the blinds open or whatever, and sunlight shines onto the bottle for even a while, that can actually heat the plastic, and it can actually have an effect where substance can leach into the water and change the taste. And of course, they're like, well, okay, I'll change out the water. It's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about it. Blah blah blah. And so I worry about it. I get it. Okay, so a company, it wants to save face, it wants to keep a customer, it wants to calm things down. So they're gonna lie. They're gonna tell me everything's gonna be okay. They're gonna tell me, no, we didn't give you cancer. No, etc. They're gonna make everything my fault. This is the kind of stuff that businesses will do, because that's kind of how you stay in business. So I went and I looked up that stuff, because I already understood the idea of there was this fad of disliking a material that's in certain Tupperware is the big one, but certain kinds of plastics where if it's exposed to heat, it leaches this stuff out. And it's like a selling point on a lot of plastic now. Well, it contains no blah blah blah, and people will ask about this, and that's fine. I went and looked up. I knew about that, but it's kind of not anywhere anymore. So I looked up to understand what's going on. Like, what is that substance? Are there other kinds? And I learned that there are different, because of course I already knew that there were different recycling codes on everything. And so if you, usually on the bottom, if you turn something over, you can look at your Tupperware, you can look at plastic bottles, you can look at like the jugs for this water. And it will have what's called the chasing arrows. So the 3 arrows in a triangle, all chasing after one another, and there'll be a number in the middle. And this is going to be different in different places, of course. So I'm talking about Canada, and I think it's much the same for the United States. So there are turns out there are 3 codes, but I only learned about 2 codes. So one is if it's a number 1 in there, then it's polyethylene terephthalate, whatever, HDPE or polycarbonate. And exposure to heat, this plastic, when exposed to heat, will release antimony, or an antimony, like, not an analog, that's the wrong word, but this other compound with antimony. Now, so I'm like, oh, that sounds bad. Get a picture of antimony. It looks like metal bad. And it's not. It's a metalloid. It's a kind of a wacky other element. It's an element. It's, so you think, well, okay, man, like, is that like lead? Is that like arsenic? What is this stuff? What does it do? It's go to Wikipedia for your research. Yeah, go to Wikipedia. Go to Wikipedia and look and see the tiny little section talking about, toxicity for this material. And you just get this one little paragraph. Just, oh, it's perfectly safe in small doses. And it's like, okay, guys. So I actually reached out to an American association. It's like a government association which has a report talking about specifically about the toxicity of antimony. And so I've got this actual PDF here. And let me just, so I don't eat my own hat, I'm going to look to see where it is. Yeah, plastic and sunlight. Okay, so toxicological profile for antimony and compounds. The ATSDR. So this is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. And, Wikipedia can go suck it, because I went way over their head. And so I've got this PDF that I could read. But the thing is, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I have superhuman senses. Maybe I can taste antimony. Like, okay, what kind of superpower is that? I'm not like screaming maiden in distress. run out in my spandex. I'll save you by tasting antimony. No, it's not. Like, how useless is that? Okay, great. But it turns out that Minion can also taste it. So, I mean, I'm not that special. I mean, he's not special, so definitely it's something common.
Sad.
But
Great, I'm playing. Nice one.
But I went to actually confirm what chasing triangle's number on the bottom of the jug is, and it's not a number 1. So all of that is right out. This is not an antimony issue. It's a number 7. It's a number 7. Now, number 7, when it comes to plastics, when you get a number 7, it means shrug. It means they don't want to admit. It means other. It means something is happening. Now, I know that there are processes where plastic exposed to heat does something. It's well established now that I looked at number 1 in antimony. But number 7, nobody's going to tell me anything about anything. And what's even stranger is I look at, because we've got multiple jugs, and you can go to some places and you can return jugs and they'll just relabel them with their company sticker, and they will just reuse the variety of different jugs. So you end up with jugs from different manufacturers. So there were different manufacturers, all number 7, all plastic other. And so who knows what this one versus that one will do under those circumstances. Like, we refilled with good water, and we made sure that the new water is not in sunlight ever. It's in the corner of the kitchen and does not get sunlight cutting through that little corner. And it tastes like that. Now, it tastes like that either because like there's sunlight in the room, I guess, question mark. It's not streaming through it, and it's not warm. Like, we've got air conditioning in that room, and it's we can chill the water. That's what we had before. We had chilled water, and it was cooling all of the water. Just because kind of the water was in around. So, and that didn't matter. That didn't matter. And new water under these new conditions, but it was the same container. And it turns out, I think, that whatever toxicity in the plastic stayed and continued to leach in this newer water. So we're at the point where now I understand why glass jugs exist. So we're going to switch to glass. We're going to switch to glass. We're still going to keep things out of sunlight just because there might be bacteria issues, because that's a different kind of taste that I think we tasted before. So it's like I've been drinking a lot of Diet Pepsi. This show is not sponsored by Pepsi. And I've been doing that because I haven't had good water. Even for the tea I was drinking, it was not good. So this is one of those circumstances where you will be slapped in the face by some problem. And a lot of people, they won't have the time, the interest, they won't be aware, they may not have the money to be able to really spend some serious time in the face of being lied to by companies or by Wikipedia, and they won't be able to pursue this in order to optimize and improve the situation. Some people will just make do. That's just what the water is like. Oh well, it's this neighborhood. It kind of sucks. I'll guess I'll just drink more juice or something like that. Please don't drink juice. It's just juice has more sugar than soda pop. So I spent the time and I learned a new thing. Like, I don't know if this is going to stay in my head at all, so I took some notes. I kept the PDF. Hey, disk space is cheap, and I'm an archivist, so I'm going to put it somewhere. It's going to get lost. I'll be able to, I've got a special search program that I made that'll walk through my stuff. I'll be able to find it again if this ever becomes a thing. It will not be handy. I don't have any of that stuff handy, which is a bit of a problem. I don't have any of it handy, so I can't just pull it up live. I take that stuff and I put it on a different computer and blah, blah, blah. At any rate, so yeah, man, water is one of the most important things, and yet it's like sleep, right? Water is one of the most important things, but we don't really think about it or pay enough attention to it or try to do it right. We don't sleep right. We don't eat right. We don't drink right. You're probably suffering going to work. I know you're suffering waking up. Your bedtime's a problem. Your debt is a problem. Your relationships are a problem. Your scheduling is a problem. Your everything. And it just keeps going. And it's a matter of dropping, the hard thing to do is to give up on the things that don't actually matter to you. And when you can do that enough, and right away, do your 80-20, define what you want in life, define what's actually important in life, and pull it back so that you're not taking 100% and trying to cram it in 80 time. You've only got 80 and you've got the 20% time, and that 20% time is what you do to just kind of poke around and learn about something, or do a process a little bit better, or clean, or organize, or I'm going to be horrifyingly busy real soon. And it's not just because this show represents about 17 hours a week. I've got some university grade stuff that I'm getting into now that a lot of stuff is going online. There's a pilot project I'm getting involved with, and it's going to be I don't know how much I mean, I am so. I mean, the entire point of this podcast isn't for me to show my work or myself, even though I'm the person that has a name and a face and all. Well, okay, one day I'll have a face. So I guess I will very slightly shill this. So English is, I never learned English. And man, my memory is a little fuzzy, a little weird, but at no point do I have, like, I can reach back in time and I can know certain things, and I can reach back in time and I can reach back in time and find the other versions of me reaching back in time. So I have more access to those guys than I do for the actual substance. And I have multiple times in my life wondered, have I ever actually been taught English? Like, I know there was an English class in high school. Like, I know it goes way, way back. But I know that my grades sucked, and I know that I failed, and I know that I went to summer school, and I can't remember if I passed summer school. Like, but I can't. And I know that all of my past versions that asked this question never got an answer. And the question is, did I ever learn grammar? Like, can I think of a single thing that I learned in English class? Like, a little Shakespeare, right? Which Shakespeare? Oh, I know. Must have been Romeo and Juliet, right? Maybe Hamlet? That makes sense. And that makes sense gets kind of inserted as part of your fictional version of a memory, just to stitch together that whole. But I don't have a problem with having these great big gaps in my memory. But I do recognize when that's there. So I've got a gap with that with English. And so I'm trying to learn a little bit of that. Like, what the heck is, what's a verb? What's a noun? This stuff, it's meaningless to me. And so I'm for the second pass trying to work on learning another language. And I've gone through so many different languages, just learning a little bit. I remember back in the olden days when online translators were really new, that it was a rather impressive feat that I could stitch together a little Italian at that point. And so I've kind of had some exposure to lots and lots of stuff, and it's fun. It's fun. So I did some online tutorials. I was interested in a language called Frisian. And I'm part Dutch. I'm part Dutch. I was raised Canadian. So I'm Canadian. I just happen to have one of my bloodlines that goes back into the Netherlands. And it turns out, now I haven't sent my genetics to be owned and copyrighted by some other foreign company to have them check and then tell me whether or not this is true. But I've got family that are from Dokkum. It's in Friesland. It's in the Netherlands. So it's pretty specific. It's a specific city. And so I'm kind of like, I have no idea of not being Canadian, so I'm not a hyphenated Canadian. Like, I know there are a lot of people that they just lack individuality and they want to feel connected to some lineage of stuff. So they're like, well, I'm a hyphenated American. I'm a hyphenated Canadian. This reveals a kind of gap in that speaker's personality that they're filling with something that's foreign. Like, play pretend like you're from somewhere else. You're not. You're never going to be. That's not how it works. But people feel it in their blood, and they reach out and they adopt bits of other cultures, which is a really healthy thing to do. But I've never experienced that because I was raised Canadian properly. I don't speak a word of Dutch, for example. So I went investigating this because it was just something that I wanted to understand the hyphenation concept. So I went and researched things. And I'm exposed to it. I'm learning a little bit more about it. And the thing is, in the Netherlands, there are 2 official languages. There's, just like kind of Canada, right? Canada has 2 official languages. It's got English And English is, we have like a British colony accent for English. We have like the old English accent that just didn't mutate the way that it continued getting weird in Britain. So we have a version that's very close to British English with spelling that's British. And more dictionaries accept that Canadian English is a thing, which is yay. And it is a little different than American English, which is a little weird because I'm learning grammar, but it's American Standard English, which I don't quite understand the differences, but I don't know if I'm being taught wrong because America is all wrong. At any rate, so and Canada has French as well for legacy reasons that I've talked about in the past. The Netherlands is not quite in the same way, but it's got two languages. So it's got Dutch as the main language, and it's got Frisian. And Frisian it's not Dutch, so it's not quite mutually intelligible. There's some borrowing happening because they kind of grew up kind of as neighbors. But the Frisian and Frisian languages are in a crescent that is through the Netherlands and Germany. But there just happen to be kingdoms that sprung up and swallowed those lands. So there's actually 3 different Frisian languages. So the one in the Netherlands is just called West Frisian. There's a few like accents, like Clay Frisian is the one that I'm going to be learning. At any rate, it's got a very few speakers. It's got like 140,000 speakers or something like that. And it's getting less and less. And it's going to be endangered. There's a classification for languages. And it depends on... So there's like a society that understands the nearness of extinction to animals. We're all familiar with that idea. There's the equivalent for languages as well. And so Frisian, this version of Frisian, this Frisian, is not endangered, but we all see the writing on the wall. We all know where the trends are. We all see the big cities where people will just speak Dutch, even if they've got family that have Frisian as their first language, and they speak Dutch. We see people learning Dutch right away, and then learning in the Netherlands is a little interesting. A lot of schools are very different from Canada. Canada tries to teach French, just fails at it. And so nobody really speaks French. If you're West Coast, for example, nobody speaks French. If you're in our plains, in the middle provinces, you're probably not going to speak French at all. The northern of those areas, absolutely not. Right? Even in Ontario, which is right next to Quebec, which has those first language speakers, I guess I should say. You have a failed system. In the Netherlands, they have English, and they usually have your choice of like English or French or German or Spanish or. And they have near fluency. They're really, really good. So you can actually be a traveler. You can go to the Netherlands. You can you can have reasonable Dutch. Like you can basically hold a conversation-ish. So you can be approaching and going to a store or something like that, going to a restaurant, and you can order in Dutch, and it'll be terrible and it'll be an accent, but they'll understand you, and your words are good. But you go to the Netherlands, and as soon as they figure out that you speak English, they'll just switch to English because they're just like that. And so you'll find in some places they will make fun of you and keep trying that language, and they'll kind of help you. In the Netherlands, they don't even bother trying. They'll just switch to English, and they want to practice their English. And so you might actually have a hard time learning Dutch as a foreigner going to the Netherlands because they have such competency in English. So the story goes, I wanted to learn Frisian because I've got some ancestry that probably goes through there, but I can't check because I want to own my genetics. I'm weird like that. So I got family that goes through there. And Frisian is kind of rare, and it's because of that, it's really hard to learn. Like, really, like where can you learn Frisian? Have you even heard of Frisian? There's some linguists that know about it, and that's because it turns out that Frisian is the closest cousin to English. The closest. Have you heard of it? I hadn't. And so, wow, there's some real value there in keeping something that is so important, that's a neighbor, that's a cousin to another really important language. Also, if I speak English really well, hey, maybe it's easy for Frisian. Turns out to not be entirely true. However, so I want to learn it. I tried, and there was a terrible online course, and I took a second stab at it. It's a really rare, really, it's not, the hard to learn is because there's no community, because there's no interest. But, so the only real place you can actually go and learn it is one university in the Netherlands, and it's not even in Friesland, which is hilarious. But it's a big university. It's pretty nearby, and I'm not going to pronounce its name right because they present either a Dutch version or an anglicized version of names. So I don't know if I should try to pronounce the words they give me in English or in Dutch. So it's kind of weird. So it's the University of Groningen, or I could try to pronounce that in Dutch, but I won't. And so they've got now not just the little free 3-week pilot course that was kind of awkward and sucky, but a 13-week course. So when I was talking about having no time, I wasn't just talking about the 17 hours for this plus my regular life. 17 hours of this plus my regular life, plus I believe it is 840 hours of content.
He says shouting with his arms up, leaning back.
It's 13 weeks of a course of, and the thing is the course, how would I explain it? So the course is really wonderful. I don't know how to explain. So my experience with the Canadian education system is some things are pretty vague. Languages, when they get presented as a course, tend to have like a summary. So before you even apply for a course, they will tell you what the course will give you. And there are classifications of the accomplishments in language skills. And there's an actual European Union standard for languages for this. And this course actually brings a person up to some pretty significant competency with better like listening and reading skills than speaking. But actually, so I know if I take this seriously, I might actually be able to do a second language, like for realsies, if I take it seriously. And this is one of those really rare opportunities because that course costs money, probably good money. And I am pleased to have been invited into it. And if you go to sya.li/Frisian, learn how to spell Frisian, it'll link you to our groups and our Discord, and you can hopefully get in if you're listening to this. If it's sometime in the future, which is likely because we don't have a big audience, then I will probably end up updating something somewhere and point you towards the free version of the course, which is, I think it's 4 weeks, and it's pretty simple stuff. And everybody's trying, and we've got a Facebook group and a Discord group, and one woman popped in the other day. She wants to set up a FaceTime group, which is like Facebook live chat. I'm not familiar with it. I don't even like Facebook, but I actually made a Facebook account just for this, and I was the dude that just started a Facebook group just for this. And for like keeping, like for being available for a couple of World of Warcraft buddies. That's about it. And I think it's creepy and weird, and I don't like it. And it's Facebook, guys. So I don't actually interact with that sphere. I don't really understand how. Same thing with Twitter. I don't understand why anybody would use it or why it would work. It just doesn't make any sense. So, and it turns out, a couple of the instructors joined the Facebook group. I didn't know it. One dude popped in. It was like, I can't imagine what time it was because so Canada is quite a distance away from the Netherlands, and Canada's got 3 main time zones. And the Netherlands is like GMT +1, so it's just a little bit west. No, GMT -1, whatever. It's very near Greenwich Mean Time.
It'd be +1.
+1, and I think can't.
Yeah, because main part of left part of Europe is 0. Is neutral? It's 12. Is it 12? Neutral or something?
Yeah.
Hmm.
GMT. Where is the time zone set? It's not through Germany, is it? It's like
No.
through somewhere in Central Europe. There's
It's like Britain.
no, I think it's like Switzerland or one of these
It's
like.
not Switzerland.
Isn't it? I can't. We have access to this weird like global information.
One of my online friends is that where the concept was introduced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somewhere. I can't remember where it was. Trivia. I think there's some web of information that's networked all over the world where we can look this stuff up. I can't remember what it's called.
I can't be bothered.
It's like we would need some sort of weird typewriter to write all this stuff down and find out.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
So
Imagine people. It'd be funny having people read podcast talks.
transcribe it.
Oh jeez, I feel so.
Yeah. No. Back in my day, we had swing dial phones. Now things are weird. So I had it's really weird. Like imagine you make like a fan Facebook group for something other and an actual linguist professor pops in and just joins the group. And then we had the actual head of that course pop in and actually announce that it was the thing and be like, yeah, if anybody else here wants to come, here's like do this. Because one new member just kind of popped in and he's like, hey guys, I got access to this one thing. It's this big cool thing. And he like posts a screenshot and he's like, maybe you can email this one woman too and ask. And so it's like he was kind of like being a little nefarious about it. And so I was bold and just asked just emailed the woman directly. But she got me in, which is awesome because I didn't know if I'd get in, right? Because this is university level 4-pay stuff. But she popped into the group and posted and she was like, yeah, if any of you want to do this. But the caveat is it's self-directed. There's there are professionals that are paying attention to the course in order to modify it so we're beta testing it. So it's good and they think it's good, but this is an opportunity for them to have us direct ourselves through it. And the responsibility is for us to actually provide feedback so that it can be improved for when it goes for pay for realsies. So that doesn't just mean that I've got many hours of course load. That also means I have a kind of moral obligation to provide feedback throughout that. So it's more time than that. So, and I don't know if you've ever looked at the university pamphlets where you're choosing your courses and all this kind of stuff. I was a hair away from getting a double PhD in mathematics and philosophy at one point, but then they like tweaked the schedule and it just went all out of whack. And I'm like, screw this. I went and worked on becoming an electrician. That didn't work out either, but still. But I understand the university selection process. Things are really weird. I think people should just go into business for themselves whenever possible, but not in these times. Not in these times. Yet, so I understand the complexity of stuff. So I went to the university website and went and found this course. And it's, how the structure of these course loads is really boring and doesn't explain a lot. And it's lots of bullet points and codes for the class numbers. And this is part of a series. And these are the different semesters. It just goes all messy like that. And of course, some of this it's Dutch. Actually, it's not even Frisian, right? It's Dutch. So it talks about learning Frisian in Dutch, which of course. And so I think it'll be exciting to pursue this sort of stuff, learning something official. the problem is not being directed, not having my hand held, because when learning a language, it's hard to get access to the media, to the people. I'm not going to go there just to learn the language. We've got a few people that are there, and like in the group, and I'm gonna try to prompt people to tape things. And there's some other like Facebook groups that are for people with roots, or who are like they're nationals who are away from Friesland, they're living someplace else, or they're visitors there, or they have ancestry in there. So I just squeak on in. So there's some extra media, but what's interesting is I found a TV show that will post, like it's a live stream with some repetition, just TV channel that's being streamed online. So I can actually watch this stuff, and it's really useful because I was listening to music in Frisian, but it's like, a language is dying when all the music is all old-timey sounding. It's all like adult contemporary and really kind of boring and embarrassing. And it's nothing like young and hip. It like, I'm not going to find heavy metal in Frisian. Maybe that'll be my side gig once I get confident. That would be really hilarious. I'll grow some hair into a mohawk, into like a bad mohawk. And so I guess I'll end my rant pretty much on this. So I was listening to music, and then I was listening to news, which really helps a lot. But this TV channel, it's called Omroep Friesland, and listening to it, like I can watch it, and it's actually filming people's faces very specifically. So there are interviews and all this kind of stuff. There's events, etc. But it always comes back to somebody talking, looking at the camera, or looking to somebody that's being interviewed. And that lets me read lips, which really, really helps. And so, but because this is such an obscure thing, I can't even find books that are translated into this language. Like, I know one girl who got some Harry Potter, but not the complete series, because it wasn't popular enough. So she's got like three of the books or something like that. I don't know how many are in the series, like more than 5?
Harry Potter? I thought there was 7 or 8.
I can't remember. I remember seeing some of the movies and going, this is derivative crap. I thought it was just badly written. And I would actually tell the author to her, actually I could tweet her to her face. She'd tell me to go F myself, but because she's like that. When you have $1 billion, that's kind of how it works. And but I actually don't like the writing. At least the movie, the way it translates to screen is terrible, absolutely terrible. And I can't really get through the book very well. I've got it on tape, but I haven't listened to it. I mean, who would listen to stuff? That's what a crazy idea. People listening to people talk. Ugh. So at any rate, Minion, you've got to go, correct? Do we have more time? I mean, I can run through Administrivia really quick.
Administrivia, I don't think we need to really. It's just there's a lot of backup stuff now to do.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes for me to like fix in the technology side of things. I really like that I have things on headphones now. Maybe I need a quieter keyboard just for this show if I'm ever going to type, which I really shouldn't. Or maybe I type during sentences so that I can edit it out for the actual... people on a live show will forgive certain things, or they just won't notice. But during an actual podcasty thing...
Oh, you adjust the sensitivity?
Of the microphone, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, I could.
Or just go for a softer keyboard?
Well, yeah, but I gave my softer keyboard to you, so...
Oh.
I am looking at getting another... So what I gave Minion was a washable keyboard, a waterproof keyboard. And it's good. It's not one of these like latex awful things, but it's got actual separate keys and everything. It's just all the mechanics inside are sealed. So you can still gum up the keys, but you can wash it. You can submerge it even, as long as you don't... you shouldn't wash the end of the USB cable. And let it dry and all this kind of stuff. and it's actually a really good keyboard. But I switched back to my old one, and it's not my IBM Model M, which is the best keyboard on earth. But this is pretty good, I guess. But I shouldn't be I should be the one that's talking and maybe referring to notes, but that should not require anything more than a mouse. So, and for this show I moved the microphone a little bit away. So maybe I'll move it even further away, and that might help with things even better. I think it's at 80% right now, which is most people would consider okay. But why am I looking at that thing that says 100%? You know, if due to my system reboot and my things getting messed with, if it actually defaulted it out to 100%, and I need to find out now. Oh man, and I can't remember how the heck. Okay, playback recording. That's... Wait. This is the correct microphone?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so... Oh, wow, weird. Okay, so... there's like a little dot microphone on the Bluetooth thing that I've got. And so I know I fiddled with it to make sure that it wasn't being picked up as my default. Yeah, okay, my microphone level's set to 100% instead of 80%. Oh. That's going on the checklist. Okay, so... Oh, God, I hate Windows. Okay, so this is another thing for me to correct. So yeah, I'm going to be tweaking it so that my voice is 20% less. Well, the microphone is a little less sensitive, and that should really improve audio as well. It's really weird. When you screw up big time again and again, there's always this amazing room for improvement. As long as you can admit your mistakes and actually spend your 20% time and optimize everything. At any rate, so you want it to go. So let's end it right now.
Okay.
We have no questions in chat, so we're doing pretty good. Our bots are in here.
Oh, the usual? Yep, the usual.
Hi, guys. Okay, so we're going to end it, and we've got a clip that should be going up today.
Did.
And normally what we're going to do is, I'm still pushing for it, we're going to have full shows coming up. So now, during this live stream, I can say, hey guys, if you want to see us, if you want to listen to more of our podcast, tomorrow on our YouTube channel, you can check us out. Our last week's live show is going up. And if you want to find quick access to us or I talk about our mailing list or merch or something weird, but you can go to lucidindifference.com. So thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you again on Wednesday.